Welcome to Catalina Treats. It's early fall, and I've been given some delicious and very large plums. I knew I wanted to make them into something special, and this recipe came to mind: stewed plums. I wanted to start with juice as a base, and I happened to have fresh pineapple. I decided to add in some pineapple chunks and as much juice as I could get. I added in a little sea salt, vanilla, cinnamon, and brown sugar. Slice the plums and remove the stones. Put them into the skillet with the peel turned up and let them cook on low heat for about 10 to 15 minutes. When I was growing up, we had a lot of fruit trees around our property. One year, I must have been about 7 or 8, I went out to the plum trees and saw the fruit growing high up on the branches. Dark, ripe fruit warmed by the summer sun. I decided I should get those plums. I stood back a ways, assessing the narrow tree trunk and how difficult it would be for me to get my kid-sized 6 foot onto that first small branch. Looking further up the tree, I realized that if I ran and leapt, I might have a chance at grasping the thicker branch that grew about 7 feet off the ground. I stood there, trying to ramp up my confidence. I looked around for nearly 3 seconds, but couldn't find anything that could be used as a springboard or a ladder. It would take all my might and all my confidence to scramble up that tree to harvest the best fruit. I knew when ascending or descending the tree, there was a chance I might rip a hole in my favorite t-shirt. But I was willing to take that chance, especially now that the shirt was covered in dirt and pretty stained up from the spirited game of Toss a Rotten Peach I'd played an hour prior with a nearby neighbor kid. I totally won that. He didn't really know that we were playing the game until it was 5 minutes in, and I got him pretty good in the back of the knee and another direct hit to the left hip. He would have some explaining to do, trying to tell his mom why his pants were in such a state. Oh well, now my problem, back to the plums. As I stood, looking up at the tree and slightly into the sun, I blinked back tears. This wasn't my first tree rodeo. I had climbed an apricot tree not 2 months ago, and I remembered the mild concussion I'd received by not paying attention to the branches above me as I had reached for one more apricot. But now it was late September, and this time I was wiser, more agile, and it was now or never. I had to get to the top of that tree and back down again before it was time for supper. I made a run for it and jumped. As my palms grasped the slick bark, I nearly flipped up and over the top of the branch like a gymnast. Boy, that would have been fun. I heard a pop and then another as the branch snapped from the tree and I went down with it. I landed on my side, still holding the outreached branch. I laid there for a few moments, trying to get my breath back, and was hoping that no one saw my dramatic acrobatics. When my parents found out that I'd broken off the branch, I would get my butt whooped. In an effort to hide the branch, I raised it into the crook of the tree, consequently making an access point for which I could pull myself up. Once in the tree, I was careful and sly, slowly reaching for the next grasp and expertly finding my next foothold in the next plum. I climbed a little higher and found a few good plums and one that was half eaten by a bird. Then I saw it. The perfect plum. It was round and ripe and deep purple with flecks of orange, and just slightly out of reach. There was nothing thick enough there to hold on to, no way to climb any closer to the fruit. I got my hand on a thin branch and pulled the branch towards me. I pulled it close enough to my fingertips that I could reach out with my other hand and grab the fruit. No plum had ever tasted so sweet. No other plum had ever had the tangy, rich flavor of that one remarkable, ripe summer plum. I ate down to the stone and let the remainder fall. It fell towards the ground and landed with a muffled thunk. Cautiously, I looked down. A couple tiny branches broke under my feet. They too fell, landing almost silently on the brim of my father's hat. He raised his gaze and glared at me. "What the hell are you doing up there?" he yelled. "Get down right now. Did you break off this branch? What are you thinking?" And so on and so forth. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't going to climb down, and I knew he wasn't going to climb up to get me. I stayed in that tree till almost sunset. He needed some time to cool down, and I was so full from eating plums I skipped supper, and by the time I snuck into the house, I was sure he'd pretty much forgotten the whole incident and I wasn't going to remind him.